On a remote plain in the middle of the desert, native artists went to a great deal of trouble, etching ornate lines into a thin layer of soil. Near the Peruvian town of Nazca, these magnificent patterns crisscross under the shadow of the Andes Mountains.
The Nazca lines are long, ruler straight lines, certain arabesques and pictorial figures across 30 miles of desert pampas on the plain of Nazca.
Some of the lines go for hundreds of miles through the Andes, perfectly straight way. And these lines, in fact, when they come to obstacles like cliffs and things, don't go around them, go straight over them.
They crisscross, they cut through each other. So Nazca's a hugely interesting, enormously interesting place, and it is mysterious.
This mystery has knotted brows for more than a millennium. But the creation of Nazca lines has proven quite simple. The soft, dark topsoil was brushed back to reveal the lighter sublayer just a few inches from the surface. From this earthen palette, natives drew ornate lines, often miles in length. Still, no one has been able to decipher the meaning behind the maker's designs.
There's no single answer to the Nazca riddle.
Adventurer David Childress claims these early Peruvian artisans were also students of earth sciences.
There's popular theories that the Earth is crisscrossed with an energy grid, and that energy lines, like the Chinese call them dragon lines. These lines at Nazca, some of them at least, may have a similar function, where these ancient people were trying to map these earth energies.
There are around 50 massive animal drawings in Nazca, called zoomorphs. Childress sees their purpose as a celestial offering.
Some of them, I do believe, are archaeoastronomical and are meant to superimpose a zodiac.
Go out tonight, look up the sky, and you see the Big Dipper and Orion the Hunter and Singus the Swan, and that maybe people were doing that as well. They were seeing these images in the sky, sort of superimposing their own view. Well, that's a fish and that's a monkey. And we know the natives did that in South America. There are different constellations that we're familiar with. They defined them themselves. And that some of the zoomorphs, some of these great animal designs, match the constellations, the animal constellations we knew these people had.
Some archaeologists believe the Nazca Indians may have been designing their own astrological chart. Symbols used as guides for rituals and religious practices.
Even the early Spanish explorers and colonists of that area wrote about the local natives who used those lines as ceremonial pathways. These may have represented ways of connecting on the ground sacred places that ancient people thought were connected somehow spiritually.
One theorist has taken this spiritual explanation for the Nazca lines in another direction. Eric von Daniken, author of Chariots of the Gods, feels the gods the Nazca Indians were dealing with actually were aliens.
They made some landings in Nazca. And what is left in the desert are some lines, some traces, like wagon tracks, wheel tracks. Now the natives believe that these are the signs of the gods, and they start to think they wanted to show us this. They wanted that we do the same thing. The natives start to make lines in all kinds of direction. Long ones, small ones, thick ones, thin ones, all believing for the gods.
According to Van Daniken, the Nazca people mimicked the work of aliens, creating similar lines to honor and appease them. He says Nazca priests later encouraged the people to make earthly designs or offerings.
And he say, we must show them that we are here. We must show them that we have sacrifices for them. And now in a later phase, in the midst of all these lines, they start to create gigantic figures of fishes and monkeys and spiders and so on.
It's a pretty simple explanation to say, hey, people believe that their gods lived in the sky, so they made giant things for their gods to see. That takes fewer jumps, fewer logical leaps than saying extraterrestrials landed on Earth and had something to do with those zoomorphs.
These designs, also known as geoglyphs, can measure up to 275 meters. This means they are only fully recognizable from an aerial view. Some have argued the scale of these projects inspired the Nazca holy men to create low-level flight to better monitor their art.
There was an experiment done in the 70s where a hot air balloon was made out of reed baskets and woven fabrics, all native to the Nazca area. They named this vehicle the Condor II, and a flight was actually made.
And they flew in a balloon over the giant Nazca drawings, and then unfortunately it came crashing down and they almost destroyed one of the figures, and it was a great boondoggle.
Investigator Joe Nickel took it as a personal mission to prove that the Nazca people could have created the shapes without the use of flight or alien intervention. He would create his own Nazca line drawing to test his hypothesis.
What I did was to try to duplicate one of the largest of the Nazca drawings. So we picked the giant condor, 440 feet long. We got a very large flat piece of land to work on and drove a pole at either end to establish a center line from which we were going to do our work. Basically, we reduced it by using a center line and some points, sort of like a connect-the-dot puzzle when you were a kid.
The result, a massive condor on the plain, a modern example based on an ancient practice. Although scientists can reproduce the lines using the same methods as the Nazca people, they have yet to answer the key question. Why?
Is it just because they're bored and don't have anything else to do? Or is it because there's really a purpose behind these lines and these figures, and that they are some kind of message or coded instruction or some integral part of their belief system and religion that we don't understand?
Most medieval churches are in the shape of a giant cross. Well, you can't see that unless you're up in the air, so why did they do that? Well, they did that because God is up in the air looking down at these churches dotting the landscape, and they're all in the shapes of crosses. 2,000 years ago in South America, people thought symbolically and were artistic and created symbols artistically to represent what was going on in their minds.
Never heard of Nazca lines? What are they?
There are all these lines in the ground.
You know, signal to outer space, to God, something like that.
Maybe the aliens were there, the local people wanted them to come back again, so they draw those Nazca lines.
No, I do not think they're ancient alien landing sites.
Astronomical calendar or alien landing zone? No matter what the explanation, the Nazca lines are truly amazing. Perhaps it's just a human compulsion to leave one's mark.